Hello, welcome to Yoga Rach. I'm Rach. Thank you very much for joining me. Please go and grab a block if you have a prop that is a yoga block, or you might need to use something around the house. So if you have a foam one, awesome, because we want one that's fairly light. But if you only have a cork or a wooden one, that's fine. Just be aware that it will be that bit heavier, and just want to be mindful that it can hurt if you drop them. If you don't have a block, especially the brick ones one we're working with, you might be able to use a cushion or a pillow, especially ones where they can fold up so you can use the different heights, and then it's also quite comfy. Or you might have a fairly decent sized book and you can wrap that in a blanket, so it just makes it a little bit more comfortable. Also might be a little bit heavy, but it's just something that you can use in the meantime if you don't have a block. So grab your prop and we're going to get started. So we're going to use the block, and you have got lots of different settings, or I'm going to go through the prop that I'll be using, but you might be using something slightly different. But you've got the 3 different heights for the brick, so work with what feels comfortable for you. I'm going to be working with the lowest height. I'm going to be taking the knees about the width of the mat, toes are touching, and moving into a supported child's pose by placing my forehead down onto the block and just gently extending the arms out in front. So just focusing on the breath, allowing the mind to relax. Just notice how it feels with your head slightly elevated and supported on the prop. And slowly lifting up into tabletop. So we're going to have a go with downward facing dog, and this is not a challenge. It's not a case of having to get your head onto the block, but just noticing where you naturally land in your downward dog. So you might need to move the block further back and have it on its highest height, or the middle range, or the lowest height. But it's a good way to notice whether you're going a little bit more into your flexibility. So if you have got a big range of movement, or even hypermobility or slight hypermobility in the shoulders, then notice whether you're focusing too much on getting really, really low onto the block. So we want to make sure from tabletop, the block is underneath the chest. You're lifting into your downward facing dog and drawing the shoulders back, and you might find that your forehead or crown of the head finds the mat, or finds the block, sorry. So notice if you're blocked too far forward, and you'll be moving here, or if you're bending into the elbows, it's just a good point of reference of drawing the shoulders back, the tailbone high, so you stay in that inverted V shape, whereas sometimes we want to try and be in this, or we end up finding that we're in this middle ground of a downward dog and a plank pose, which we don't want to be in. So notice on the other range of it, if the block's too low and you start to go into your range of movement. I know I'm quite flexible with my shoulders, so it's trying to keep the block fairly high and not too far back. Don't worry if you don't find the block. And like me, your heels might be lifted, you can have a nice bend in the knees. Focusing on the breath. And from here, you might have moved out to downward dog and having a little bit of a pause. But when you're ready, moving through your downward dog, lift your head, look towards your hands. We're going to walk forward, stopping when we reach the block, and place the block on whatever height feels right for you. And we can find our way into this halfway forward fold. So rather than keeping the fingers on the mat or resting on the shins, or some people push into the knees, which we don't want to do because the knees aren't stable, for that sort of support we can rest the hands onto the block and find this halfway forward fold. And then you might fold in so you can bend the elbows, which is quite nice just to relax and drape over the block, so it's a little bit of a ragdoll. So keep hold of the blocks. We're going to lift the chin, move into that halfway lift, and hold on to the block as you lift all the way up to standing. So from here, we want the feet to be hip width apart. Make sure you've got enough room in front of you. You're going to hold on to the block on the shortest edges, and if you drop your hands down to there by the hips, you want the block facing out, as you can see. So I'm going to turn around to the side so you can see what we're doing. We're getting a little bit of movement in the shoulders. This will be why we want to have the block fairly light, because we're going to be inhale, raising the arms, the block out in front and over the crown of the head. And as you exhale, lower all the way back down to where you started. Inhaling, raise the arms forward and up. And exhale, lower the block back down. Inhaling to lift. And exhale, lower. Have a quite relaxed hold of the blocks. You're not gripping onto the block, you're not creating any tension. About 2 more. Last one. And lowering down. So I'm going to work on the other end of my mat so you can see me or I can see the camera. So I'm going to place the block near the top of the mat. And I'm going to stand just behind the block with the left foot just behind the block. So you want to stay near the prop you're using. There's nothing more that sort of tickles me more when I say about placing a block down and then people step away from their prop and then they've got to overreach for the prop. So we've got the block on the mat, near the top of the mat, and we've got the left foot behind it. So we're going to go into triangle and side angle with the block. And you might not even reach the block, and that's fine as well. So we're going to step our left foot back, turn in to face the long left side of the mat, so you can turn the left toes out, but keep the right toes facing the top of the mat. Keep your right leg straight, but you're not locking the legs. You can have a slight bend in the knee. Roll the shoulders, reaching the arms out like you would for warrior 2. And we're going to extend the right arm over the right leg, keeping the right leg straight. So the movement is only in the torso, stretching out to the left hip. And we're going to float that right arm down onto the right leg. So even for me, I'm still too far away from the block. I have to reach, and I might be able to place the hand down onto the block. And so might you, or you might find that you're actually up here. And to be honest, for me, that feels more comfortable today. And the left arm might reach up, or if it's more comfortable in the shoulders, place the left hand onto the left hip. From here, we're going to bend the right knee, and you might find that you can wiggle your left foot further away, so you get a little bit more into your lunge. You can even rest your right forearm onto the right thigh, or again, you might place the right hand on top of the block. Left hand might stay on your hip, reaching the left arm up, or if we're moving into our side angle, we can stretch that left arm overhead. When you're ready, hold on to the block as we lift up, and we're going to turn the right toes in, turn the left toes out, and place the block to the inside of your left foot. So we're still facing the left side of the mat, but we're just going to be facing the back or the top of the mat, depending on which side you started. So straighten the left leg, make sure the right toes are pointing to that long side of the mat. Open the arms out, stretching the left arm over the left leg, so the legs, the hips don't move. We float the left arm down towards the block, and the right arm might reach up, or right hand might rest on the hip. And if it feels comfortable, maybe you move down towards the block. Make sure you're not pushing the hips, the tailbone back and the chest forward just to find the block. So if it's more comfortable, stay further up the leg. So you can stay on the thigh or the knee or onto the block. From here, we're going to go into our side angle so we can bend the knee. You might even find that if you're on the block, you can keep your hand on the block. Maybe you're lifting up and resting on the thigh. Again, hand might rest on the hip or up above the shoulder, or reaching up and over your head. Focusing on the breath. Take hold of the block as we lift all the way up, and we can have a go with one more standing pose before we start to find our way down to the mat. So with chair pose, I like to encourage students to keep the knees, the feet hip width apart, especially for someone where the hips rotate in, so the knees squeeze together. And if that does happen a lot, so you could do this in chair pose. It's also quite nice in downward dog if again you find the knees start to squeeze in. You can place the block in between the thighs just above the knees. We can raise the arms up and bend the knees and sit down into chair. Make sure you're not overly squeezing, so you're not squeezing or gripping onto the block, but you're just aware that it's just holding there. You might find it feels like it's squeezing a bit more if your knees naturally drop in, but it just keeps a bit more of a neutral placement for the hips. Lifting back up to standing, so just to show from the side. So placing the block just above the knees in between the thighs. Raise the arms up, bending the knees and sitting down into your chair. So you might lower down from here, so or find your way down to sitting so you can remove the block and come down to sitting on the mat. So from here we're going to move into easy cross-legged, and just notice which side you cross naturally. So I naturally cross, or have today, left leg, so foot, shin, knee in front of the right. So I'm going to stay here first. If you're the other way around, that's fine. So see what feels more comfortable for you. Make sure you're not drawing the feet underneath the knees. So sitting up nice and tall, and we're going to place the block in front of us. So we're going to go for a forward fold, hinging from the hips. Your forward fold might stop here, so you're supported on the block. So the arms can rest on the block. You might bend the elbows because it's quite nice to get used to having that support. So you're finding your way down to the mat because on the mat is the block, on the block your elbows, your chin is then resting on the hands. Or you might stay with this height of the block and make 2 relaxed fists. You could use multiple blocks as well. Maybe forehead rests quite comfortably on the block. Make sure you're not lifting the tailbone, and you can start to move the blocks so we move down a bit closer to the mat. But make sure you stay with the blocks. Even if you are someone that can actually find the mat, use that support. So see what feels comfortable. So you have that slight elevation. Focusing on the breath. When you're ready, slowly coming back up. So you can leave the block where it is. Change the cross of the legs. So as I said, I had the left shin in front, so I'm going to move the right shin. If you had the right shin first, then you're going to place the left shin. Notice if that feels any different on the hip or into the thighs or the knees. And again, you might find that you need to be more elevated, and that's perfectly fine. But using this support will help you get further into that forward fold. So this will help to increase your flexibility if that's something you want to do. But at the same time, if you're too flexible, so if we're a little bit hypermobile, we want to use the props so we're creating that stabilisation, so we're not going too far through our range of movement. We need to find that natural placement. So find that support. As I said, you might use a couple of blocks, see what feels right for you, and take your time. Go through the stages. So even if you know you could pretty much place your head down onto the mat, go through these little stages of getting just that little bit closer, in time, not too quickly. But just because you can get there, is it the most comfortable for today? When you're ready, come on up to sitting. So from here we're going to extend the legs out nice and wide. You can point the feet or flex the feet, whatever feels comfortable for you. Make sure you're sitting up nice and tall. We're going to hold on to the block, same way we did when we were standing and raising the block above the head. We're going to reach the block out in front of us. You're going to twist to one side and then come back to centre. Twist to the other side, come back to centre. Twist to the side, back to centre, twist to the side, back to centre. Keep going. One side, back to centre, other side, back to centre. We do that twice more. Side, back to centre, side, back to centre. Last one. Side, back to centre, side and back to centre. So from here we're going to get onto our back, so you might want to watch this first, then pause it to rewind and come back so you can see what you're doing. We're going to find our way onto our back. Now this is where you don't really want to have a prop that's too heavy. So we're going to tuck the tailbone. If you did last week's practice, you would have had to go with the single leg lifts with this, but we're going to be working with the block. So you want to keep that tuck of the tailbone so your block pushes into the mat, have a slight tuck of the chin. We're going to be bringing the knees into the belly. We're going to place the block in between the shins, so it's just below the ankles, and extending the legs up. And you're going to push the legs away as far as feels comfortable, and lift the legs back up. So it does not have to be high. Keep that, sorry. So it doesn't, you want to make sure that you keep that support in your back. So if you start to push your legs away and your back arches, then you've pushed the leg too far, or you're moving into your back rather than into the TVA and working from the isolation in the hips. So you're pushing the legs away as far as it's comfortable, lifting back up. Pushing legs away, lifting back up. Focusing on the breath. Listening to your body. Couple more if you wish. When you're done, bring the knees into the belly. Place the feet onto the mat. So we're going to keep the block at that lowest height. Now you're on your back. Think about where your hip bones are, so that hip point pointing down to your tailbone. As you lift that part of your body off the mat, just gently place the block underneath that part of your hips. So your lower back is completely lifted. There's nothing pushing into the back. And this is where if you're using like a book and you want it wrapped in the blanket, because it just makes it that little bit more comfortable. So we're going into a bit of a supported bridge, but we're staying nice and low. And you can go from here into supported shoulder stand, so we nickname this waterfall pose, or legs up the wall, away from the wall. So you've got that slight elevation in the hips, and you can lift the legs up. So very similar to what you just practiced in that leg lifts and lowers, but now you've got the support, so the back slightly elevated, so it just makes it a little bit more restorative. So you can stay in your supported bridge. You might be lifting into that supported shoulder stand. You go in the supported shoulder stand, you might point or flex the feet or draw circles with the feet, so you don't have to be in stillness. And you can always find your way into your bridge when you're ready. If you're in your bridge pose, either stay with that first height, or if it feels comfortable, you might lift up to the second height. If you're working with your supported shoulder stand, stay with the first height, so keep the block low, so you're going to be more supported into your back. Focusing on the breath. And you could just alternate between these two, or you might be choosing one in particular if that feels more comfortable. And again, this can be nice when if you're using a pillow or a cushion, as I showed at the beginning, you can always fold that over so you get that little extra height, but it's still quite comfy. And we'll have a few more moments in your supported bridge. Lowering down to that lowest height for a few breaths if you're at the higher height. If you're in your supported shoulder stand, gently lowering the feet down to the mat. And when you're ready, moving the block out of the way, placing the feet on the heels, placing the tailbone, the hips down onto the mat. And if you wish to use the block for Savasana, or if you were using a blanket or a pillow, then it can be quite nice to place a block underneath the back of the head, keeping that slight tuck of the chin into the chest. Hands might rest on the belly or fall softly away from the hips. Knees might stay bent, or you might extend the legs out. So see what feels comfortable for you. Just closing the eyes, bringing your awareness to the breath. When you're ready, just bringing your awareness back to your breath. Bring the fingers, toes, and bend the knees. If you have got the block or a pillow or a blanket underneath your head, just gently releasing that, placing it to one side, and finding your way up to sitting. So thank you very much for joining me, working with your prop for this practice. If you have got any questions on this, do place them in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed, please do click the button here. It's just a beautiful way to share your support or show your support with free yoga on YouTube. I'll put a couple of links in here for some other videos, because this is actually going to be my last video practice going up on the YouTube channel for this year. So next week is Christmas week after is New Year's week, so there won't be any videos going up then, but I'll be back in the new year with some more content for you. So thank you very much. Happy Christmas, Happy New Year, and namaste.